Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. Today we're looking at the Free Comic Book Day issue of Transformers Unicron. This is issue 0. Now I picked this up at the comic shop kind of on a whim. You were allowed to grab 5, and this was the 5th one I picked up. And I only picked it up because Rom was in it. Well, it's kind of a depressing issue if you're a Rom fan. This is written by John Barber, art by Alex Milne, colors by Sebastian Chung, letters by Tom B. Long, editor was David Marionette, publisher Greg Goldstein. Now, overall, I thought it was a pretty interesting issue. I'm not a huge Transformers fan, so I'm not real familiar with a lot of the characters, but I do know some of the basic ones like Bumblebee and Optimus Prime, the ones that were really heavily featured in the 80s cartoon and in the live-action movies. So it starts off with this giant mouth thing trying to eat Elonia, which is Rom's home planet, and we get a little introduction to the characters as we go, and Wheeljack is trying to figure out a solution to the problem. The Space Knights gather around and try and fly into the anomaly to stop it, and what they find are some dead Cybertronians. One of them is Cliffjumper, and we find out he's dead, so that's bad. Well, the direct assault doesn't go well, and the Space Knights are knocked back. A couple of them may have been killed, it's a little vague, and they end up back on the planet. Well, the Cybertronians beam down to set up some machines to try and evacuate all the living creatures out of there. Rom ends up in what he calls a holy place. It's where their crystalline armor comes from, the Thrail mineral mine, to which, of course, they have to crap all over his religion and say this was never holy. There's nothing noble about war or about what facilitated your ability to wage it. Well, since he's trying to stop an evil race of monsters called the Dire Wraiths, I think that is a bit more noble than letting them get eaten alive by these monsters. So they gotta crap on religion because that's what comic books do now. But it turns out buried in this mine is actually an old Titan that might still be alive, and it means that Elonia is actually one of Cybertron's lost 13 colonies, which sounds to me a little bit like the legend of the Lost Tribe of Israel and that sort of thing. So they're taking some inspiration from religion, but they're going to crap all over it at the same time. Well, it turns out that the crystalline metal that Rom wears is actually based around some sort of Cybertronian regenesis ore, and so that gives them a greater connection to Cybertron, but it's also an excuse to work the planet into the storyline. So Wheeljack manages to figure out that the Titan is what's causing interference with their teleport beam, so they can, if they can disable it or convince this creature emissary to not see the space bridge as a threat, they can beam everyone out. Well, they don't have time for that, so one of the female Transformers just throws these energy blades into the creature and kills it. So that lets Wheeljack use the machine to teleport everyone out. Some of the Space Knights did survive, and it looks like they're going back into the Cybertronian ship as well. They were able to save quite a few people, but there were still billions dead, and their homeworld was consumed. And whatever this thing is, they know its name is Unicron, and it's becoming more powerful and attacking more places, and the more it eats, the greater its strength becomes. And then it ends with the Unicron saying that I hunger. So it's sort of like Robot Galactus, but this was actually a pretty good issue. There were a few things I took issue with. The constant dumping on religion in comics is really annoying. Just, we get it, you're atheists, alright? You don't need to work it into everything. I don't want to hear your personal politics, alright? Just leave it out. Some of the way that the characters talk, I don't know if they talk that way normally or not, but it was a little annoying at times. It was nice to see Rom again, but I don't think he's going to play any kind of part in this storyline. But I get this sense of finality that there seems to be a lot of wrapping up of Hasbro storylines, and the fact that they're ending Transformers, which has been a very popular book from what I can tell, is a little worrisome that IDW might be losing their license. So I hope not, because I'd really like them to bring Rom back, do a regular series with Rom properly, and have some kind of Transformers book. I think they should have had a kid's book of Transformers where it's not political, it's not anything threatening, make it more like the cartoon, and I think that would have sold well, but what do I know? So I'm actually interested to see where this goes, and I'll probably pick up Transformers Unicron. It starts in July. Hopefully that'll be a good story and a good end cap for the series if they're going to cancel it, which is disappointing. I do like the Transformers, I just don't know much about them. I haven't read any of the books since Marvel, but hopefully it's done well, and hopefully it has Rom in it, but we'll see. Until then, I would definitely recommend this issue. If you get a chance to pick it up, please do so. so. It's part of the free comic book day thing, so you might be able to find it for free yet, but I doubt it'll be real expensive until the event actually starts. So keep an eye out for it and give it a chance. It's a great introduction to the Unicron story, and if you like Transformers, it could be good stuff for you. That'll do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. Make sure and hit like and subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at Transformers Unicron Issue 1. This miniseries is apparently wrapping up the Transformers line for IDW. I don't know if they're going to lose the license or just stop publishing or what, but it doesn't look good that way. They had said they weren't going to do a Unicron story, but here we are, and honestly I'd be real sad if they lost the license because I really like a lot of the stuff they've done with the Hasbro properties. They've done some crap too, but the G.I. Joe series is pretty good, and I really liked ROM. So this is issue 1 from 2018, and we have a little bit of a recap of what happened, what the story and legends were, and how some of it were lies. And now Optimus Prime is trying to rally the troops to get them to go fight Unicron, and he's leading an expedition onto Unicron, even though there are those opposing voices. So him and RC and Bumblebee end up on Unicron, and they're walking around fighting different like antibody type creatures, while the Maximals are attacking and fighting off the other Cybertronians. And Rom's out there helping as well. Well, they're also putting this planet in the way of Unicron, and it's probably going to be destroyed if they don't save it. Well, they find an Omega Sentinel crashed on there, looks a lot like Omega Supreme, and they mention that he's back on Cybertron, so that's a good sign. Then we see some other characters I'm not really familiar with on the planet. They're fleeing while this priestess stays behind to fight off the Maximals so they can make their escape. And in the meantime, Shockwave, who apparently started a lot of this mess thousands of years ago through time travel or whatever, he is locked in a cell talking to the most infamous traitor of all time, Starscream. And there are references to the Optimus Prime series as well as Lost Light, but I haven't been keeping up on those, so I don't really know what that's all about. And in the end, of course, Starscream offers another way. Prime is having none of that. They've failed in their mission. Things are looking even more grim, but there's a little epilogue where Rom addresses the Space Knights and says, look, we need to help these guys. They helped us. We lost our homeworld. We can't let them lose theirs as well. They've been good allies. Gives this real rousing multi-page speech, which is actually pretty well written. It's a little heavy-handed on the moralizing, but overall it was good. There are a few issues I take with this. The characters are a little bit whiny, especially Bumblebee, and in the epilogue he tries to be like, oh, let me talk, Rom, you're too emotional. No, that's stupid. But overall it was a good story. I actually thought it was pretty fun. I'm not that up on modern Transformers stuff, but it was a good read. I thought it was a pretty solid book, even at $5. Paper quality was real nice. The art's pretty solid, and the story wasn't bad. I thought it was pretty well done, and I'm gonna recommend it. I know a lot of other people don't like IDW, but I thought this was a good book, and I've liked a lot of stuff they're putting out. I would recommend this, and I'm gonna check out issue 2, which comes out here real soon, and hopefully it continues to be good, but we'll see. Hopefully they don't give up on doing a Transformers book, but they did just pick up some other licensed properties from Marvel, so I don't know where they're going with their properties, but we can hope for the best and hope they keep putting out some good books and a lot less political nonsense. But this is a solid recommend, and that's going to do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you liked the video, hit the thumbs up and consider subscribing so you don't miss future reviews, and we hope to see you on the next one. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at Transformers Unicron Issue 2. This is from IDW in the year 2018. Written by John Barber, art by Alex Milne, colors by Sebastian Chang, letters by Tom B. Long, editor was David Marionette, publisher Greg Goldstein. Now we open up where we left off with Starscream giving an impassioned speech to join him because Megatron has fallen or whatever. And it turns out that he's already contacted selected some spread out folks from the wars to go and intercept Unicron, and they are called the Decepticon Vengeance Division, and they are out attacking Unicron. Meanwhile, everybody else is mourning the loss of the planet Caminus that just got destroyed last issue, and Bumblebee's got himself an idea to go talk to Omega Supreme, who hasn't been active in ages, but as soon as he touches him, Bumblebee's eyes go weird. We get a little bit more about some of the peripheral characters, the religious guys, and some of the others. I think they're called the Torchbearers. And Starscream insults the delegates from the planets that have already been destroyed. And then we get a little bit of an origin story as to where Unicron came from, and it turns out there's a link to the Dire Wraiths in there, which is really interesting, and I didn't think they were going to go there. Well, then the Vengeance Division finds out the hard way that the Maximals are there, and they are there to get involved in the final stage of their evolution, and they go on a massive killing spree. We find out that Bumblebee learns a little bit about what's going on from Omega Supreme, and he seems to know what Unicron is from what he says, and there may not be a decent way to stop him. And it looks like that, in fact, Omega Supreme may be dead, which would be really dumb, because he just kind of sitting there. What a waste of a character. Then we get a little backup story about the G.I. Joes. It's Scarlet and Roadblock, and it's really a dumb waste of 5 pages. It's a nothing throwaway story with really, really bad art. So was this issue worth it? It's $5, and honestly, as a casual reader, I'm not hugely into Transformers lore, but I thought it was pretty good. As just a casual, someone that walked by, saw it, picked it up to read it. I remember the Transformers from the 80s comic and some of the really early IDW stuff from way, way back. I thought it was good. I enjoyed reading it. I thought it was fun. The G.I. Joe backup story was a complete waste of paper, and I was tempted to cut it out the second I read it and just to shred it, but I didn't. Overall, I thought it was, to me, worth $5. If you're a diehard Transformers fan, I think you might get something out of it. I know it's another Unicron story, but I think there is something there to be enjoyed. And is that a good way to wrap up the Transformers line? No, I think it's a little bit of a lazy cop-out, but I did enjoy it, and I would recommend it. But like I said, if you're a diehard, you may not like it. From my understanding, it is better than a lot of the current books that are out there, Lost Light and Optimus Prime. At least look into giving it a chance if you see it cheap. So otherwise, I can't really speak to what experts on Transformers will say, but it's my understanding this is better than the regular books. So I enjoyed it, and I'm going to recommend it. But that'll do it for me. As always, thank you for listening and supporting the channel. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up and consider subscribing so you don't miss future reviews, and we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Transformers Unicron. This is issue 3 of the 6-part miniseries from IDW 2018. This is written by John Barber, art by Alex Milne, colors by Sebastian Chung and David Garcia Cruz, letters by Tom B. Long, editor was Dave Mariette, publisher Greg Goldstein. Alright, so this is a fairly complex issue with a whole lot of characters, so I'm just going to give you a brief overview. Effectively, they're trying to mount a defense against Unicron, but there's a lot of divisions. Starscream's being a real annoying character in this one, like usual, and he advocates running away several times, which is actually kind of funny. Bumblebee's in here talking about what happened with Omega Supreme last issue, and we've got several combiner characters. We've got the Torchbearers forming Victorion. Rom shows up briefly, and we learn that the history people thought they knew is not actually what happened, and actually the Cybertronians were expansionists, and they were trying to build an empire, and they came across this planet that they decided to conquer, and they effectively wiped out everyone in a genocide. But one of the people that lived on the planet created Unicron as like a reaction, as a defense mechanism to destroy the Cybertronians, and it just obviously happened way too late. But they used magic, which is where the Visionaries come from. They created the Dire Wraiths, and that's how the Wraiths get their magic, is that same type of magic, and that's where this Unicron creature came from. So it's an unstoppable force. And he has the Maximals, which have corrupted Starscream's fleet, so they have a fleet of ships coming at them that are all Decepticon ships, as well as Unicron. So they're sending people up to fight. They can't evacuate, even though there's a city that can turn into a bridge of some kind. It's a giant transformer in itself. I'm not familiar with a lot of these characters. I am a total normie when it comes to anything Transformers. I grew up with the comic books in the 80s, and that's really about all I know, and I know those aren't quite canon or anything. So a lot of the people that are outside of the city, which is mostly Decepticons, the Elonians, and several other refugees, can't get into the city and escape with them. So only about 30% of the population would even be saved with this bridging ability. Starscream's all for it. He's okay with it. Soundwave is not okay with it. And he sends a signal out saying, hey Decepticons, they're gonna leave you. Everybody's trying to get into the Metroplex. It's creating chaos, and Prime, everybody's second guessing him. And this is all Shockwave's plan. He was posing as a Prime back in the old days to stir up trouble and cause issues, and even though he's locked in a cell now, this was all his plan in motion anyway. There's also a backup story in here with the characters from Mask. Matt Tracker is in it. I don't know why they made him black instead of the blonde guy. I guess they wanted to give him blackface or something. So another diversity hire racial swap for the sake of it. But the Mask characters in the IDW books were okay. This was a terrible backup story. The art is total trash, and it was really boring and didn't make a lot of sense, and it was just some sort of like silly thing to fill space. But overall, the main story was pretty solid. I don't know who a lot of these characters are, so it's kind of hard for me to tell you if they're in or out of characters, so I'm not familiar with quite a few of these. The only major complaint I had, like, overall the art is fine. Unicron looks pretty cool, especially in the final page. He looks really awesome. My main complaint is that some of the colors are a little too bright, and that's not the fault of the colorist, I don't think. I think that's just the way the characters are supposed to look. And because there's so many purples and pinks and blues, it all kind of blurs together in this sort of psychedelic wash. And sometimes it makes it hard to tell where a character ends, especially with like the Maximals. I can't tell what's background sometimes. And I think that's just my lack of familiarity with the character. If a couple people are standing too close together, they kind of blend in. And I found that a bit distracting at times. But overall, a pretty decent thing. There's a couple of stupid jokes in here that are kind of cutesy, or gender insults, like, oh yeah, a male would say that sort of thing. But it's not very heavy-handed, and overall I thought it was a pretty decent book. I'm going to continue to recommend this. From a casual reader perspective, I think the story is pretty good, and I'm okay with it. I didn't feel ripped off for my money. But that's just my take on it. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you like the video, hit the like button and consider subscribing so you don't miss future reviews. If you want to help us out, throw us $1 on Patreon, and as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello, and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Transformers Unicron, Issue 4. This is part of the 6-part miniseries that is wrapping up the Transformers line from IDW, and probably the shared universe as well, which is a little disappointing. So this is written by John Barber, art by Alex Milne, colors by Sebastian Chang and David Garcia Cruz, letters by Tom B. Long, editor was Dave Marriott, publisher Greg Goldstein. Now, quite a bit happens in this issue, and I'm going to try not to ruin it for you. But G.I. Joe starts to get involved in this as many of the Transformers make their way to Earth. We learn that the Visionaries are now getting involved as well. And at some point along the way, apparently Joe Colton, the original G.I. Joe, betrayed the team and tried to kill the Cybertronians. I must have missed that. That was obviously part of another storyline, but it's not cited where that happened. But they were good about citing other stuff. They reference the backup story in Unicron issue 2 and Visionaries versus Transformers. Well, anyway, a lot of people get killed in this issue, and since I'm not that familiar with the characters, I have to say that the deaths, although they seem like they're kind of being killed for no reason or that it's a throwaway death, it's really not, because it is a war and they are in a mass fight, and they do die heroically in most cases. So with refugees flooding toward Earth, we also have Shockwave causing problems. He manages to escape, and we see that the Elonians, what few of them remain, including Rom, are with the Cybertronians. So it's a lot happens here, quite a bit. And overall, it's a pretty solid issue. I have a few quibbles, like the little introduction boxes where they introduce people. I'll have silly little things written under them instead of actually telling me about the character. It's just these little quips, and I find them very distracting and annoying. Other than that, it's a pretty solid issue. I was actually pretty impressed with it. A lot happens. There's some really cool panels in here, some good one-page spreads, or three-quarter page spreads, that sort of thing. Some great perspective shots, and the buildings, although they look kind of traced, do look okay. We have a backup story called Transition, written by Christos Gage, art by Paolo Vellini, colors by Mattia Inaco, letters by Tom Long, edits by Dave Mariette, and this is a Micronauts backup. They are going to be getting involved in the process, and we see a little bit of them. It's a real short thing, but obviously they're going to join the fray as well. So overall, I would recommend this. I thought it was a good follow-up to issue 3. There's a little bit of stuff I'm confused on that obviously happened in either the Transformers book or some other crossover or whatever that I'm out of the loop on, but overall I think that it's really tying a lot together, and I enjoyed it even though I don't have the full context of what's going on. I think they are ending their shared universe. I don't know if they're losing the Hasbro license or what, but IDW seems to be wrapping up the shared universe, which is really disappointing. There's a lot of great stories they could have done with that, and I hope they don't lose the Hasbro license because they really do have a lot of potential with G.I. Joe and Mask, Visionaries, Transformers. I don't know if they're going to reboot everything or what. It really is a pretty fun series so far. It is handled pretty well, and I'm glad I'm reading it. So I'm going to recommend it. I didn't feel cheated for my $5. Die-hard Transformers fans may not like it as much, but I think there's something here for everyone. I thought it was a lot of fun. That's pretty much my take on it. Hopefully it continues to be good. If you're a die-hard Transformers fan, I'm going to give you some caution that there's going to be some upsetting deaths in here, and you may not like the storyline in general because Unicron's been done before. That being said, that's just my take on it. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you liked the video, hit the like button and consider subscribing so you don't miss future reviews, and we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Transformers Unicron issue 5. This is a very thick issue at $5. It's written by John Barber, art by Alex Milne, colors by David Garcia Cruz, letters by Tom B. Long, edited by David Mariette, publisher Greg Goldstein. Okay, so the surviving Transformers are on Earth with Rom and the surviving Elonians and various other assorted peoples. Now, they've come together with G.I. Joe and Cobra and several other people, the Centurions. Looks like the Mask team is kind of off doing something in Detroit, and they're formulating a counter-strike. Now, while Shockwave is taking over Toronto and eliminating everybody, the others are focused on the bigger picture, while some of the other G.I. Joes are counter-striking in Toronto, including Snake Eyes and I think Storm Shadow. So the story kind of involves a lot of different moving parts, so it's a little difficult to explain, but Shockwave had planned this whole thing and it's gone completely off kilter from his goal. He didn't think that people were going to betray him, and they did, pretty heavily. So it looks like the Maximals were supposed to destroy Unicron for Shockwave, but now they work for Unicron, so his plan is completely shot. Meanwhile, Optimus Prime and the others have come up with a little bit of a plan, and it's a pretty bold one too. And they end up having to escape the Maximals by teleporting one last time with Metroplex, and it's the last time he can teleport for some time. But it does give them the advantage of taking the war toward Unicron, and they are able to distract the main forces of the Maximals and get past them instead. And the Elonians, the Cybertronians, and various assorted others are assaulting the Maximals while 3 ships take their payload into Unicron. I tell you, this was a real action-packed issue. There's also a backup story called A World in a Future, written by Magdalene Visaggio, art by Fico Ocio, colors by David Garcia Cruz, lettered by Curtis Fandango, edited by Dave Mariette. And this is a story about what happened to the Visionaries, and it looks like they got sent back to their home planet, but in another time. So it looks like they're there thousands of years before their people actually arrived on the planet. So I'm a little confused as to how that's going to work, but the story was pretty interesting. It was a short piece, and unlike what I've usually seen with Megs Visaggio's work, this is actually pretty concise, way less talking than normal, and it was actually a pretty decent little backup story. A little confused where they're going with this, but it was not a bad story, so good job there. And definite improvement over some of Megs' previous work. Like I've said before, I think Megs has writing potential. It's just too talking. It's a visual medium. Don't talk so much. So it was actually a pretty solid backup story. But overall, a good solid issue for Transformers. It's really escalating things quite a bit. We're going to look at issue 6 soon and see how it wraps up. But overall, I would definitely recommend this. If you're a Transformers fan, you probably take some issue with the Unicron aspect. But if you like what IDW has been doing over the past few years, you'll really like this storyline. It's got a lot of risk. They've already lost so much, and a lot of people have been killed throughout the storyline. So it does have a long-term ramification. I don't know if IDW is going to have the license still. There's rumors that they are, but I haven't been able to confirm that beyond some random Reddit posts. Hopefully they'll relaunch the Transformers in the near future. But in the meantime, this is a recommend, but that's just my take on it. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing so you don't miss future reviews, and we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Transformers Unicron, issue 6. This is the final issue of the miniseries, and it's an oversized prestige format book coming in at $7.99. This is written by John Barber, art by Alex Milne, Sarah Petri Dorocher, Andrew Griffith, and Kai Zama. Colors by David Garcia Cruz and Joanna Lafuente. Letters by Tom B. Long, editor Dave Mariette, publisher Greg Goldstein. Now this is obviously the final chapter in the story, and it is pretty brutal. While the Autobots and Decepticons team up to fight the Maximals, we also see what G.I. Joe and some of the Mask teams are doing. We only catch little glimpses of them because this is primarily a Transformers story. We catch glimpses of Rom. I don't know what the Micronauts were doing. I thought they were going to appear in the last couple of issues, but they didn't. So we don't really know what happened to them. But Optimus Prime, Starscream, and RC make it to Unicron. Meanwhile, Prowl gets his hands on Shockwave, and there's a lot of fighting, a lot of different things going on. It's difficult to explain without ruining anything, and I'm going to try real hard not to do that. We see a lot of the Constructicon Transformers, and we also see the Dinobots come in and fight the Maximals, and unfortunately there is quite a bit of character death in this book. Just like we've seen with the other issues, we see the last stand of several heroes. It's resolved in a very unique way that I did not see coming and would not have expected. It was really well done issue, and the fact that it went in a different direction than I expected it to really was actually kind of refreshing. So I would recommend this. I thought the miniseries was pretty solid, and this issue was definitely good, but if you hadn't read the previous issues, it would probably be pretty confusing, and there's a little bit of lore that I'm not familiar with from the IDW Transformers line that probably would have helped with a greater understanding of the series. But overall, I enjoyed it. I thought it was well done, it was well written, and some people aren't going to like the way that it ended, and I get that, but I think it does put a good end cap on the series in a way that may not make everyone happy, but it does have a solid resolution then. Where the Transformers go from here, I don't know. I don't know if IDW is planning on doing more with them or relaunching the series. I would personally like to see them do more like what they're doing with Star Trek Transformers. I would like to see it as more of an all ages book, so you could bring in younger readers that have watched the more recent cartoons as well as the old time fans, and use a lot more of the classic characters. There were a lot of characters in this book that I have no idea who they were, but I'm not a diehard Transformers fan. I'm sure sure most people that are diehard fans are going to see this and know who all these people are. But overall, I thought it was a solid read. It was interesting and compelling. My only complaint would be that the colors were a little too vibrant at times, and it started to kind of blur together. But that's more of an incident of the toys being those colors and it being just kind of a clash of the colors they're supposed to be. So I don't fault the creative team for that. I thought the creative team did a real good job. Everybody looked really good. They looked a lot like their toys, that sort of thing. So overall, I would definitely recommend this. I think it was a lot of fun. I'm probably going to get the trade or the hardcover depending on how much it costs. As far as individual issues, this one is really nice format and the paper quality was really good. I was surprised that it was $8, but when I saw there was no staple and it actually had perfect binding, I was really impressed with that because it actually feels like a graphic novel then. And it really had a lot packed in there. So definitely worth the money, especially if you're a Transformers fan. Even a casual one, I didn't feel cheated by it, I should say. But the paper quality and construction of it were really good. Good job to IDW on all fronts on this book. I thought it was handled really well with enough maturity and respect for the property. But that's just my take on it. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing so you don't miss future reviews. And we hope to see you on the next one.